Well, today I haven't really thought of any specific topic because it's the first time I'm doing a yoga talk, and I want to express more about how I see the entire situation going on right now. I won't be going towards the philosophical side much, but however, as I was a kid, that time I had to go through lots of ups and downs. A bit of background of where I am from. So I am hailing from eastern part of India, which is called Calcutta. It's close to Calcutta. I live in Jamshedpur, which is like around 200 kilometers away from Calcutta. And as I was being brought up from my parents, I saw lots of difficult times. Um, Also because I'm pretty much from a place where it's village. Things weren't that modern, and the financial stability was not really very dependent on my father's work. So his business weren't doing very good, and there had been times like I had to. Actually, my parents also had to think about, now we have food, but we don't know what we are going to eat the next day. So I've been through all those ups and downs. There had been time that I don't really have school books. Like I moved from one class going into the next form, and then I have to borrow books from the seniors, and it actually was quite embarrassing going back to the school and think that, hey, you don't have anything. Or the teacher used to say, and then my parents used to call the teacher saying that we are having some crisis and we'll try to figure it out as soon as possible. Um, Lots of you have asked me that why my English is different. I won't say it's great, but I my parents, one great thing they did, apart from all the other things, of course, is that they purposely chose to keep me in a school which choose English as a medium of study. That means any subjects which I am learning, apart from the national language itself, are all dealt in English. And we were actually forced to talk in English rather than talking in our national language. But many of us actually did not really follow those guidelines, and that is why I had been studying English, or the subjects had been in English since day one, and hence my accent is different. However, that accent actually changed after I came to Hong Kong. I still had some Indian accent, and maybe I still do have some Indian accent, but let me tell you, Indian accent are not that bad. Just like some of the things they will be saying in different way, just like if we say here quarantine, and in India they would say quarantine. Yeah, and we say here schedule, and over there they will say schedule. And so some of the ways of expressions or talking in certain words might be different. They also might be having the kind of extended accent, but then you know that in India usually it's a huge country, right? It's so big that there are people from different. I was just talking to one of the students yesterday that there are people from different parts, and every single state will be speaking different language. So they will be, if you are going in towards the northern part of India, you would see people having different language of their own. And if you go to deep down into the south, they speak Tamil and Telugu, and they have got their own language. I'm from east, and but however, overall in entire country, there is one national language which is followed, which is called Hindi. And if you go towards the northern part of India, you will find usually the skin tone of the people are very fair. The more southern it goes, due to the change of the temperature, the environment, the sun being more strong, there isn't much of a winter there on the southern side of the country, and that's why the skin tone gets darker. I am somewhere in the middle because I stay somewhere in the middle. Okay, so yeah, and yeah, this is all about it. And coming back to the topic of how I feel is that, see, we all have got ups and downs in life. There will always be something which is going to be good, and when we encounter what is good in certain thing, we know that there are certain things which isn't good, and these are all subjective to each other. These are always, if there is good, there is not good. If there is light, there is darkness. So in order to create that balance, we need to understand that it's a flow of life, and that is why we say in yoga philosophy that the ultimate goal is reaching to the highest state of enlightenment, which is also called moksha or nirvana. And the whole idea is that we break through the cycle of life and death. We break through the cycle of suffering, happiness, sorrow, joy, all these which entangles us and keeps us bonded into this lifestyle, and we set free. And this setting free doesn't really happens naturally. It takes a lots of determination to actually let go. I was teaching a teacher training in China, and I said that the cycle of birth and death, ultimately we want to let go, and we want to attain the highest state of consciousness, which is moksha. That means you do not take birth anymore. Your life comes to an end, or your cycle of taking birth, dying, taking birth, and dying comes to an end. It finishes off, and then you become one with the infinite consciousness. That means you become one with the guardian angels. Again, I was about to say angel. So in India we say angel, but yeah, we say angel over here. Um, and this is why yoga is for us. This is why I think we all need to start seeing more into our inner self. Um, and when we want to see the inner self, what we actually want to explore, that exploration is more about our own actions without being judgmental of what is happening outside. Our own actions, and trying to merge that action, trying to actually connect ourselves with that of the universal force. And in order to attain this state, it is extremely important that we come into the right platform of practicing yoga. And that platform, we all know, is not just that physical dimension or aspect. If today we are staying at home, we are doing stuffs, or we are, I know if you're watching from India, you're in a complete lockdown, you're not even supposed to go outside. But in Hong Kong, we are still having that privilege of going out with some constraints, of course. And this is because we have got the lifestyle of us have been so much in a routine manner, like the frequency is so consistent that I have to wake up in the morning, I have got to do my own routine of work, I have to earn money and so on, that it makes us to feel like, how do I change this whole pattern suddenly? How do I make a complete switch of all what's happening? First is that. And well, imagine that when we are sick, if we are sick, finger crossed. I'm not saying from the virus, but overall, if we are sick, what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to take a step back, rest at home, heal. And now that's the whole thing about the entire universe. It's to take a step back, heal itself, watch for itself and action. And that is not really the mass of the community doing that, but it is more about the individual action. I'm not going to talk about vegetarianism. I'm not going to talk about getting into the phase where we should stop killing. As I think we all have seen those things enough on the social media already. But really, to accept that change is something which needs to be outspoken to our own self, that yes, I am a part of this universe, and right now the universe needs that change. I need to have a different perspective of seeing life. Many of us over here, I believe we are not all even having fixed earning, including myself, right? And because we are actually completely shut down for a while, and how do we take this? I was just thinking about this yesterday evening, and then I thought that, say if this scenario continues for another couple of more months, what are the other possibilities, or what are the things which we need to really realize that, or how much savings would I have to continue my family and everything without having the time of being earning? And I thought that if I'm reversing my cycle of thought 15 years before, or a little bit more longer, I see that that whole experience of me living in India, in a bitter experiences, most of the bitter ones, and not being having um, ample financial stability to try and do things, I get to feel like I'm a lot more comfortable right now than many people, and I'm still a lot more comfortable, even if it's continues for the next couple of months, than I was before when I was in India. So it is always that tuning of the mind, that how we see, because the perspective of how we receive things makes us to change, makes us to either think that this is good for me or this is not good for me. And that restraint which we create, that why is this not good for me, creates a frustration. And when that frustration stays inside, well, that's what leads to bitter experience, unhappiness. And that is why when back in school, or back when I was a kid, I didn't know about these things. We used to practice asanas, yes, but we didn't have much of a spiritual guidance. And I always used to compare myself with my fellow classmates, and that probably was one of the seed reasons of why I felt unhappy during that time, and which I have learned over time growing, that this is something which is always subjective to what we see, what we want to feel like within ourselves. Like, I take this as a happy moment for me. I can take this as a moment where I am having so much of time with my family. People say that I don't have much time. I'm so busy. And now we have time. Now you have so much of time. It's a good time to practice. It is a good time to create something. There are so many hobbies which, just like cooking, it's healing. If you have never tried that, maybe you can give it a try and see how it goes. For me, I personally, I am not having a kind of boredom with this. I'm enjoying being in my space of doing stuff which I have always wanted to do and haven't been able to do because of the lack of time, or because I'm coming after taking X number of classes, and then I want to take a break, instead of when my kids comes in and says that, okay, play with me, I'll like, I'm tired, so let's do it some other time. And those are the things which now I see. I have ample time. I have so much to give. I have so much of time to do my practice. I have time for meditation. I have time for doing every single thing which I have wanted to. At the same time, I can think in a different perspective that, oh my God, now I'm just stuck at home. I can't access the gym. I cannot earn for my living. What am I doing here? So there are two different perspectives of how you want to see your life going on. And it's always good not to get used to something. Because if we really get used to a certain way of living life, that has to change. And then when we are suddenly coming into a space where we have to stop things, accepting the situation becomes a lot more challenging. So Yoga is the key over here. And I would say when you're talking about yoga, I'm not really talking about um, just the physical postures. Um, in Yoga Sutras, there are five kleshas. Kleshas means the five restraints or the five qualities which actually pushes us away from the spiritual growth. The first one is called avidya. Avidya means ignorance. That means not really trying to know the detail or the depth of anything, whatever is coming in, but trying to put our own vision into it. The next is asmita. Asmita is like I-ness or ego, and that also helps, or rather resist us to carry our inner self forward towards a spiritual development. Avidya, asmita. Then is raga. Raga means anger, frustration. Frustration leads to anger, so they are connected. So whenever we are angry, the mind, observe your breath and observe the mental state. It's heavy. The heartbeat is faster. And what meditation does is it exactly reverses that pattern of the anger. And so, again, you're going into the opposite direction. And this way is meditation. The other way, you're going in towards the raga. The next is dvesha, which is jealousy. And let me be honest, as I was growing up, again, back to the 15, 20 years before during our schooling time, I used to be having this a lot. I used to have that jealousy because all my friends have everything they want and I don't have. Again, there wasn't anybody to spiritually guide me that, hey, the way you are seeing things, this vision or this perspective of choosing this isn't right. And that is something which I over time saw within myself that, yeah, I think my response towards somebody having certain thing is negative because I'm not having it. And it helped me to build up that self-realization and gradually manage to have that change. Sometimes still it will go back in because those are deep-rooted characteristics, and again we have to refine that, and that is very normal in all of us. Looking inwards is the key, and awareness of what my thoughts are, what my actions are. These are some things which starts to helps us to develop towards the infinite spiritual realm. And that is why we say that physical body sometime like the asanas can be sometime quite competitive, right? Because when we are in class, observe yourself. Are you trying to compete with or trying to do better than somebody else? There's only one person you should be competing, and that's your own self, because you want to get better at what you do. Not because you want to do a handstand or you want to do great postures, but that is the motivation. I would say that is the way the life has to go on. We are a little better today than what we were yesterday. And this is how you would see the enthusiasm of life continues driving you forward. Okay, so uh, Dvesha, Abhinivesha. Abhinivesha is more about I want to hold on to my life. Like, I don't want to let go. Or also, in other way, you can say it's the fear of death or clinging into the life. Like, I really want this is so close to me. It can be life. It's mainly, Abhinivesha is called mainly about life, but anything you are holding into can be said about Abhinivesha. And sometime when we let go things, it becomes so much more natural and easy for us to feel that we are there on that groove, like birth, life, birth, continuity of life, and death. These are three different phases or aspects of a human cycle. And the more we just flow within it, I know it's easy to say than to do, but that is exactly why that spiritual step is necessary. Having said that, become aware, like most of us over here are asana practitioners, and asanas are the really the very first stage of understanding as I am getting into a particular pose, what is my mind doing? Is it trying too hard to push into the energy of the pose? Is it trying to observe what is happening within myself? What is happening in the breath? And that slow transformation of thought process should give a state of joy when the practice is done. And that leads us towards a steady state of mind. If you're not able to do meditation in a regular basis, do the asanas, that's fine. But eventually, you want to, if you're doing an hour of practice every day, some of you do longer, think about how much time you think the mind is at a state of peace during the asana practice. For many of you, it might be for 1 hour. So why not just extend that and stay with it for a bit more longer time? That is why pranayama, meditation, are the key components of building that awareness and to make the mind steady. That is why we always say that as the practice gets better, it is not the body anymore. It is all about what is going up here. A healthy body will help you to stay or live long, but a healthy mind will keep a body healthy. So a healthy mind will keep a body healthy. A healthy body might not necessarily keep the mind healthy because that depends on our inner thoughts. So try and change the perspective of looking at things around. Practice with the right instinct, with the right understanding of why am I supposed to practice. If you are a teacher, I know there are lots of teachers watching as well, ask yourself that what you want to give the students is what you are practicing within. If you have been into my classes, I always try to merge some philosophical concept into it, because that is again the ultimate goal of where we want to see ourselves, because that's a state of joy. That's when you go there, that's when bliss happens. That's when you're in a state of ecstasy and you feel like now yoga is actually helping me inside out, not just outside. So take that practice in such a way that it helps you to actually I won't use the word fight, I was just about to, helps you to actually see things more in a clear manner, accept the situation, accept whatever it is around us, accept you being at your place and what are the restraint you have to do at this point of time, and be joyful. Because once we accept it, joy becomes a natural process. When we restrain, we try to resist, that's when we start having that frustration. So again, avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, all these qualities starts building up only when we are not looking the inner self. So one last thing I would like to say before we go into the pranayama session. When you practice in silence. And that is one reason practice in silence means, of course, when you're going into the asana practices, you definitely have a voice guiding you. But then that silence of in between the voice is where your inner self talks with you. That is exactly when the transformation happens. It doesn't happen when you listen to the teacher constantly telling you. It is to listen to the silence within yourself. That's when the transformation happens. So some of you also told me saying that, okay, we are now practicing with you the asanas online, so that's great. Usually you would only teach like walking and teaching and adjusting. And that's because I feel it's more comfortable for me that when I practice myself in silence, and when I teach, I can completely focus on teaching rather than combining these two things together. However, it's not incorrect to do that. You can always do that. I know lots of teachers does that, and that's their choice because they feel connected. For me, I like to see it as two entities in different forms carrying me front.